So a few weeks ago, I popped by Barnes& and Noble and picked up the Isle of the Lost series for myself to read. It was a little weird actually buying them. When I was checking out, the cashier was all like, "Oh, nice, this is the entire series." And that was nice because it's like, okay, this guy isn't about to judge me for shopping in the ages 6 and up section. He knows what these are and everything. So it was like a little dialogue started up there. But then he saw my wallet, which is like, I have it here. It's red and gold. It says, 9 3/4 Hogwarts Express. And then my coin purse is not fandom at all, but it's also, coincidentally, it's kind of like also red and gold-ish. And like, he saw them and he was kind of like, "Oh, I love that that's red and gold and that's red and gold. The only thing that would be cooler is if that," by which I can only assume he meant my bag, "was also red and gold. And if it said, like, all hail Voldemort." And I was like, okay. And then he kept going on about this. Like, oh, if the coin purse, I guess, it was like, if that was Deathly Hallows. And then he was saying if you had a shirt, if your shirt was like Death Eaters or all 8 Horcruxes. And I was like, I am getting a new bag soon, actually. It's also Harry Potter. It's not red and gold though. But it is Harry Potter themed because that was actually like the day that I was making that Harry Potter bag. But like, I was like, what? I mean, to each their own, I guess. But also, if you're gonna have something that says all hail Voldemort, like, I feel like red and gold is a really weird color combination. I know that's probably not the most important part of this, but I was like, if I were ever to design something that said all hail Voldemort on it, which, to be clear, I would not do that. It would not be red and gold. It would probably be black with like white lettering and some sort of dark mark inspired graphic. Anyway, I digress. This is about the books. Alright, so if you don't know, The Isle of the Lost is a book series by Melissa de la Cruz. It's like a tie-in with the Disney Channel original Descendants series. Now, The Descendants was a Disney Channel original movie in 2015. It was about the teenage children of classic Disney villains going to high school with the teenage children of Disney heroes. And there was a sequel movie in 2017, Descendants 2, and Descendants 3 is scheduled for release in 2019. Now, like many of the more popular Disney movies, there's a lot of supporting content for the Descendants. There was a short promo web series from before Descendants 1 hit called School of Secrets that featured, world building and character introductions and lots of the Auradon kids worrying about the imminent arrival of villain kids next term. There was a 2-season animated web series that came out after the first movie called Wicked World, which featured further adventures of our heroes, introductions to new characters, including other villain kids who just sort of snuck off the island prison, lots of magic hijinks. There was also some typical Disney Channel merchandise books and stuff, like Mel's spell book, which had scribbled notes from all her friends and in it, Evie's fashion book, Mal's diary, etc. There are little chapter books that seem to go along with the Wicked World show because they contain Wicked World characters like CJ Hook and Freddy Facilier and such. Anyway, what I'm focusing on here is the Isle of the Lost novels. So there are currently 3 novels. We have Isle of the Lost, Return to the Isle of the Lost, and Rise of the Isle of the Lost. There is a 4th novel, which is slated for 2019. Don't know what the title for that's going to be yet. All the media is just calling it Isle of the Lost #4, A Descendant Story. I assume that's not the real title. Anyway, it took me a while to get around to checking out these books. I thought that I was getting by just fine in the fandom without having read them. I read the summaries of them on Wikipedia, so I knew what generally happened in them. I read so much fan fiction that, you know, you can sort of tell which details probably came from canon and fan fiction just by virtue of what tends to show up in every single one, like what's consistent. A few weeks ago, I decided, you know what, I'd like to know for sure. Could be nice. Why not? So I popped over to the bookstore to pick them up and actually read them for myself. I've got to say, it was a great decision. It was an excellent decision to read these books. I highly recommend it if you're a Descendants fan. It just gives so much more flesh to the characters. Okay, so in the first book, it's true that when I read it, I already knew about the Core Four's backstories from fan fiction and the like. There wasn't really new information per se, but really getting the dialogue that goes along with the scenes, like the characters' thoughts about stuff, it's so much more meaningful when you're getting the whole he couldn't bring himself to say it to make it real. Like, just stab me in the heart. Honestly, there were some things that still surprised me, like, okay, it's clear to us watching the movies even that the VKs were abused, right? It's, somehow though, I was expecting, okay, so in Harry Potter, right, Harry was clearly abused by the Dursleys. You can see that in the books. But since they're told from Harry's point of view and he's got this whole unreliable narrator thing going on, it's also something that maybe it's a little, can be hard if you're naive or young or something to really quite get right away. It's like, it's horrible facts, but they're presented in this very casual way. So you have to sort of actually think about what you're hearing or reading to be like, wait, no, that's messed up. So I was kind of expecting that same sort of tone in the Isle of the Lost books. But what Melissa de la Cruz did was she managed to make it so that they still all have this really horrible case of unreliable narrator, and they still present everything as though it's completely normal. But it manages to come off as obviously horrible. And the contrast of the casual narration just makes it worse, which is very powerful, very moving. It's really well done. The entire culture of the Isle is great. Another thing that honestly surprised me was Ben's sections in the book. I knew that Ben did appear in the first novel already before I read it. I knew about one of the major things that happens with him, but I had the impression somehow going in that was just going to be like at the end. And honestly, I think again here I was influenced by the Harry Potter fandom, because okay, so there's like a lot of Harry Potter fanfic that really delves further into the politics of the wizarding world, like how the culture shapes it and how it's shaped by the culture, and little things like certain more minor levels of unrest in the world and microaggressions of the average wizard. And just, you know, a lot of fics will go more in depth with Wizarding World politics than we get from what Harry sees in the books. So when I saw fics in the Descendants fandom that were talking about politics, more subtle levels of dissatisfaction and the political climate of Auradon and stuff, I just sort of assumed it was the same kind of thing. So I was beyond delighted to discover that Auradon politics is actually a thing in the Isle of the Lost books. You do actually get civilian pushback on the magic band and sidekick characters feeling oppressed, and just, it's amazing. Honestly, this isn't something I was expecting from the canon at all, and I love it. Beyond just the details that the books bring in to enrich our characters, what really impressed me was the timeline juggling, the way that Melissa de la Cruz had to fuse the canons. Because here's what happened. Okay, there was Descendants 1, right? And then the Isle of the Lost came out. And that was set before the movie as like a prequel showing how our core four became friends, etc. Then there was Wicked World. And then there was Return to the Isle of the Lost, which took place after Descendants 1. And it sort of was taking place around the same time as Wicked World. It incorporated plot and characters from Wicked World. So the real trouble then came when Descendants 2 hit in 2017, because Descendants 2 seemed to just sort of ignore everything from both the books and from Wicked World, which, you know, was already established as part of the Isle of the Lost canon. So in the third novel, Rise of the Isle of the Lost, which came out after the second movie but takes place before the second movie, Melissa de la Cruz had to do these like gymnastics to make everything from the previous books and Wicked World fit into what we saw in Descendants 2. And she did an amazing job. It was astounding. Like, not just little continuity details, like having Maleficent in Mal's dorm room instead of behind lock and key like she was in Return to the Isle of the Lost. But I think, honestly, what I consider even more important, emotional character arc details. Like, why the kids would be so leery of going back to the Isle in the second movie if they had already been doing so in the books and in Wicked World. How Mal started stressing out about being an Auradon princess when she was still unapologetically herself before. Why Jay was being so rule crazy at roar practice. It's amazing to me how she managed to make all of that work so well. Rise really, it does an excellent job of setting up Descendants 2. I love it. I keep saying that, but I love it. Plus, for me, at least, in Rise, in this one, I actually got a lot of stuff that I didn't know already from fanfiction. Like, a lot of the Sea Kids stories. Like, honestly, I like Uma's crew now. I didn't really feel too strongly about them before. Like, I sympathized with them. They were fun and all, but like, I wasn't personally super invested in them. Now though, after reading this, it's like they're coming together as a crew, getting their ship, treasure hunting quests. Harry's fear when he was down in the cave. I'm trying to avoid spoilers here. Uma making sure all her crew was safe before she looked after herself. The way that Gil approached them rather than just being some sort of tag along. The moment when Harry finally accepts Uma as his captain, like it made that one line, like, she's captain on the first mate, it just means so much more to me now. Ugh, like, ugh, gross. I can't believe I like them now. This is terrible. This is like Ragnarok all over again. So honestly, if you're in the Descendants fandom, I cannot recommend these books more. Even just little details, like Evie's fashion line is named Evie's 4 hearts because 4 hearts together are stronger as one. Little details like that give me life. These books, I love these books. You will love these books too, probably, if you're the kind of person who's watching this video. I highly recommend them, and I guess that's it for now. So, TTFN, ta-ta for now.